6. I'm very excited to be here. I have who I think is one of the most talented people in our industry, probably the most undercover, I think, as well. Joe Scuderi. How are you, mate?
Good. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, man.
Yeah.
My pleasure. What's happening?
Busy.
Yeah?
Very busy now. Yeah. Obviously, establishing One Living and trying to get that up and running and buying sites and putting together the structures and the procedures and all the fun things associated with starting a new business.
Yeah, man. It's a lot of fun. I'm sure a lot of chaos for you.
Certainly chaos, but I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
Definitely enjoying the challenge.
Mate, you took the right time to sort of take the plunge in when the industry's like gone through probably its biggest restructure ever.
Absolutely, but it was the timing was definitely calculated.
Yeah.
We're in a time now where the state government has brought in a whole host of initiatives and reforms that allow developers to unlock land to deliver housing.
Yeah.
And, there's no hiding the fact that we are in a housing crisis and this issue is not going to get solved in the next 10 years. It's really a 10 to 15 year issue that needs to be resolved. So we thought the timing was right and that's why we're looking to strike.
Like, I've got no doubt you're going to be very successful, but we'll delve into the transition soon. A lot of people, I know you quite well. I've had the pleasure of knowing you for a while, but for those who don't know you, who are you? Like, where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? What's your background?
So grew up St. George, Sutherland area. So grew up Mortdale, South Hurstville, Panania and Menai, really. That's really where I grew up, so mixed bag. Culturally, family migrated here in the 60s from Melbourne. Very, very hardworking family. Both grandfathers had 2-3 jobs at any given time. So, and my dad was the same. My dad, worked 7 days a week, literally as a mechanic for God knows how many years. So very hardworking family, middle class family. A lot of sacrifice and a lot of hard work to, just try and put food on the table. And I'm very appreciative of what they did, and especially my grandparents migrating here from Europe.
Yeah.
And, similar story to a lot of us where, they made a lot of sacrifice to put us, first, second generations in the position that we are in today. So very grateful for that. Went to school, Menai High, so public school in Menai. And then obviously did university after that. So,
yeah. So it was always, doesn't sound like your family was in property.
No.
So how'd you take that?
No, like
that path?
Dad was a mechanic. Grandfather worked for Sydney Trains, and the other grandfather worked in a fruit shop.
That was good.
Very mixed bag of professions there.
Salt of the earth people, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I got introduced to property. Like, originally I wanted to be a mechanic. That's the first thing I wanted to be.
Yeah.
When I was 14, 15, I sat down with my dad and said, listen, I want to be a mechanic, just like you.
Yeah.
And he very quickly steered me away from that decision. And after that, I went, okay, if I'm not going to be a mechanic, then what's the next best thing? So luckily, at that time in my life, I had some mentors, family, friends, and some cousins that were in the industry, whether they were builders or developers or whatever it may be. And I always had a passion or a liking for property in general. At the time, wasn't necessarily development, not sure, but I definitely had a liking to architecture and property transactions. So I very quickly steered, during high school into the direction that I wanted to get into property at some sort. I didn't want to be pigeonholed into one thing. I like doing multiple things at any given time, and very quickly realised that if you don't want to be pigeonholed into something, then property development's definitely the way to go, because it's such a multifaceted profession that you're dealing with 100 different things on any given day. So very quickly steered in that direction in terms of university degrees and experience. That's what I wanted to hone in on.
And out of uni, did you go straight into work?
During uni. So before I started uni, I worked for Build Corp for a couple of months. So my cousin worked there. This is when Build Corp had their own development team, 22 years ago. Worked there for a couple of months just as work experience. And that was really the driving factor that made me say, okay, you know what? I love this. This is what I want to do. And then during uni, I was fortunate enough to get a job with a developer at the time called Exeland. So, they were a mid-tier developer, but at that time, this is 2004, 2005, at that time, if you were developing 40 50 to 100. That
That's-
was considered a high density at the time. Obviously, you had Harry doing what he was doing and so forth. But if you were doing 100 units at any given development, that was big time. So they had at the time they had 10 to 12 jobs going, probably a pipeline of 1,000 apartments, and it was a small team of us. It was 3 development guys. Obviously, I was a junior. I was an ADM at the time. I was there for 4 or 5 years. Working on a whole host of different things. And at the time, because it was a small team, it was sink or swim. Whether I was at uni or not, it didn't matter. You had to be accretive to the business. You had to be accretive to making money. So if you weren't showing your worth and actually doing what you were told to do, even though at the time I had no idea about much, you had to prove that.
And it's like, property development and construction is one of those industries a lot of people don't realize. Like, a lot of your superiors sort of expect you to know what to do without telling you what to do. They expect that that's the character of the individual that's there.
The owner of the business used to say to me all the time, you go to uni, you got the answers. I don't know how to do a strata registration. I don't know how to get an occupation certificate.
Work it out, mate.
Work it out. So very quickly, I use that saying, sink or swim. Like, that's what we had to do. So, there's a lot of, at the time, I put a lot of time into after hours education for myself.
Nice.
Doing a lot of reading on, what is an OC, what's a construction certificate, what is strata registration, what's a strata certificate, what's a stratum, all these different things, all these, various concepts that you're getting introduced to that, obviously you don't learn in uni per se, but when you're getting into the profession, you very quickly need to learn. So, very quickly delved, into learning as much as I could about the profession and, trying to introduce that into, day-to-day practicalities of the job.
So obviously the fact that you're exposed to all these different elements of the industry and of the full cycle of actually bringing the site to life, that obviously led you to your, up the food chain up and where you finished up at Landmark before you made the move.
Well, so, after Exeland, I then wanted to try and get some introduction to some larger sites. And I was fortunate enough at that time to get a job with Mirvac. So I worked with Mirvac for 6 years and again, started there as a junior and worked my way up the ranks there. And, I was very fortunate at Mirvac to be able to work on, some of the biggest sites in Australia. So, I did 8 Shifley Square. I was a 24,000 square metre premium grade building in the city. Did that for 3-4 years. Worked on the acquisition of Australia Technology Park and the pre-commitment with CBA. That was a large team of us, but I was, kind of leading the development component of that. Fantastic experiences, nice. Complex jobs that needed attention to detail. And, you needed a sacrifice in terms of, your personal life. There was a lot of late nights in terms of the ATP deal. We were there for weeks on end, months on end, till 2-3 in the morning, trying to get an AFL signed with CBA. But, I was very fortunate to be able to work on a host of different projects. And I also did acquisitions there at Mirvac as well. So worked in resi and commercial acquisitions all over the country. So, that was I was very grateful for that experience in terms of working in an institutional grade developer, who are very stringent in terms of quality and stringent in terms of process. I really, really enjoyed that time.
Yeah, nice. And so you've obviously started with the smaller groups. You've worked with Mirvac. You rode the wave up, it seems, outside looking in at Landmark. And now you've got your new business. So what do you guys, with One Living, what's the plan? How do you guys see yourself? What's this business going to be?
So I think it's pretty obvious at the moment in the marketplace that there's probably a gap in the middle that's missing. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of developers that are focusing on luxury, premium, downsizer product. And there's obviously some of the private developers that are still doing high-scale, high-density development. What I wanted to introduce to the marketplace was a high-density developer focused on build-to-sell, focused on attainable product with institutional capital backing behind it, so having a balance sheet that can actually support the delivery of high-scale, high-density developments all over the eastern seaboard. So at the moment, we're focusing primarily on New South Wales, but we do have aspirations of going into Brisbane and Melbourne at some time. Obviously, the business is only 7 months old, so it's early days. But at the moment, we're in the phase of setting up the procedures, setting up the systems,
Yeah.
and obviously acquisition mode. So
How does that happen though? Like, how do you get to that point where you decide, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to set up this business? Like, how do you get intros to the capital? How do you when you got there on day one, you start with a blank piece of paper essentially.
Yeah.
Like, how does it?
Really a day one thing. It was probably a year before I made the transition where I was introduced to a group called Greenpoint.
Yeah.
Who's a New York-based investor.
Yeah.
And they were looking to make an investment in the living sector within Australia.
Yeah.
And obviously I and them saw a cohesion in terms of what we were thinking, in terms of what the Australian marketplace or what the Sydney marketplace needed, in terms of a focus on attainable stock and a focus on really looking to implement modern day construction methodologies and new technologies into construction, because the way we build has been relatively the same for the last 40, 50 years. It hasn't really changed. But there's a lot of people out there that are doing some really exciting things from a technological standpoint in construction that, you can save cost, maintain quality, and even save time. So, luckily, because we're starting a new business here, we've been able to really immerse ourselves into what the marketplace is actually offering from that standpoint. And that's what we're looking to introduce into our product.
You find, I'm curious, you're talking about technology. There's a couple of groups that seem to be trying to get a bit of an edge. How are you finding marrying up that new technology with the current rules and regulations in the construction space here?
It's hard, especially if you're looking at VMC, like volumetric modular construction.
Yeah.
A lot of the regulations evolving now and changing to really accommodate that type of construction.
Yeah.
But there's still a lot of smart systems out there that are constantly evolving, and there's a lot of R&D going into those systems. The current controls that we have in place in New South Wales can allow for.
Yeah.
And then it's also just being, smarter with your design, smarter with your procurement. So, I was lucky enough to be with Landmark Group for 10, 11 years, and that business there was very focused on really disciplined design, which worked well for the product that they delivered. And I think if you introduce that along with some of the newer technologies that are available now, especially in high density, tower construction, you can really deliver a good product. And like I said, One Living is really looking to focus on attainable stock. We don't want to be producing luxury stock. It's really looking at being in certain markets, whether they're undersupplied or supplied currently, but being able to provide an attainable product that people can buy.
Yeah. Okay. So you're trying to obviously be, I wouldn't say revolutionize, but make certain adjustments to the way you deliver product.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how does that mean with your team and your consultants that you need to put around you? Like, obviously you need to be able to have very strong and quality people around you to be able to deliver that.
Absolutely. So, being able to have a good stakeholder team throughout the whole development process is absolutely crucial. And, collaborating with those various stakeholders, whether it's your architects, your engineers, waterproofing expert, marketing, sales team, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
There has to be total collaboration and cohesion in terms of what the vision of the product is and what the vision of the business is.
Yeah.
So selecting that team carefully and appropriately is extremely crucial. And that's what we're doing now. We're making sure that we're selecting people that can be part of this journey, that are aligned with our vision, that are aligned with what we actually want to deliver to the marketplace. And working very, very collaboratively with them, because we don't have all the answers. But we want to spend the time now to work with really smart, great stakeholders in the industry that have good knowledge, have new ways of thinking, and looking to introduce that into the marketplace.
And this one's a little bit off script. I'd sort of question without notice, but your return, you said you've got some offshore capital or some US capital behind you. How are they getting their head around the regulation and the margins and the timelines that it takes to deliver a project here?
Yeah, I think they were relatively educated prior to entering into the market on what it is. The owner of the business in New York for Greenpoint is an Australian who moved to New York.
Right, nice.
he had a very good fundamental understanding of the Australian market very quickly. So
Yeah.
it wasn't like I had to go and explain to him how the Australian market worked.
Yeah.
There was a clear cohesion in terms of they understood it, I understood it, and there was no real surprises here. So obviously, it's hard to make things work naturally in the residential market space, as you know, with
it's been a sore point for a lot of the new entrants who've tried to come here.
Yeah.
Like you've had obviously the Chinese, a lot have come and now gone.
Yeah.
And it seems like you got a lot from the Middle East that are coming. You got the Japanese sort of starting to dabble back in again.
Well, the Japanese are here. I think you're seeing a lot of institutional grade capital from Japan coming into the country, and they're reinvesting into build to sell.
Yeah.
If you look at institutional grade capital historically, let's really look at the last 5 years.
Yeah.
It's been heavily BTR and co-living focused.
Yeah.
There's been this fear of immersing themselves or investing into BTS or build to sell.
Yeah.
But the metrics are clear in terms of Australia, in terms of the lack of housing that we have. I think the statistic is 78% of renters aspire to still own their own home. So that's a massive market that can be attractive. And you look at the numbers in terms of between the ages of 25 to 29 years of age, home ownership in that sector has dropped immensely over the last 30 years.
Yeah.
And so something has to be done to try and...
Why do you think that number's dropped?
Obviously, affordability. Affordability is key, but
Yeah.
affordability is then fueled by a whole plethora of different things. And, the Australian market, unfortunately, has had a very tough time in terms of the cost constraints that developers face every single day. Construction costs, the way they accelerated and increased over, the last 5-6 years, since COVID especially, that's a real thing. And it's not going away anytime soon. Even little things like contributions. I say it's a little thing, but it's a big thing. Western Sydney, it's really hard to make things stack there at the moment, and a lot of it is predicated due to the contributions that you've got to pay in a lot of those areas.
Yeah, contributions and tax at the end of it as well. Like it's
a whole plethora of things, but even like other things like consultancy costs, everything has gone up from a cost base.
Yeah.
But then if you look historically at what units have done over the last 10 to 15 years, there hasn't been massive growth in that market.
Nope.
Obviously, freehold has accelerated immensely from a perspective.
Yeah.
Units and high density living hasn't really accelerated that much.
Yeah.
So when you've got a cost base that's accelerating that high and your revenue base is still relatively stagnant, it's natural that things are going to be struggling.
A lot of like you and I both know, a lot of the sites in certain markets, it has to be worth zero, or behind zero. I've
had some recent conversations with people where, and it's a hard conversation to explain to them that, if you want us to develop on this particular site, then you essentially got to throw in the land for free, and then we can look at some other...
Giving you something at the back.
Exactly. Yeah. Whether it's cash considerations or stock or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And they don't like to hear that, unfortunately. But then you open book it, you go, okay, well, let's actually go through the numbers together.
Yeah.
You tell me if you feel as though that there's a disparity of what I'm saying, and very quickly they go, yeah, okay, I understand what you mean now.
Okay, so it seems like everyone in industry knows what the challenges are, because it's quite, the feedback and communication is very consistent, everyone that we talk to. Our policymakers don't seem to get the idea though. They seem to think, we'll keep rezoning land, but even if you did rezone land in certain areas and give 5x the density, it still doesn't solve the issue that if there's no one who's able to buy, like if the unit's worth $700,000 or $800,000 brand new, you can't develop the site. Pretty much.
Absolutely, but to defend them to a certain extent, there's only so many levers they can pull.
Yeah.
The obvious lever for them to be able to pull in terms of the Labor Party once they came into power from a state level was the planning control.
Yeah.
And, I have to give them credit, what they've done over the last 2 years in terms of a lot of the reforms to unlock sites that were appropriate for redevelopment for the past 10, 15 years, but, our controls and our policies didn't allow for it.
Yeah.
I think that's the first step on the journey in terms of being able to unlock some of this density.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's other issues at hand, like from a cost-based perspective, but there's certain elements of that where, fiscal policy can't necessarily solve that.
So what would be a fix that, let's just say, a government could do that could make I'm talking in the sub $1 million market that they could do to make it more feasible or incentivize someone like you to come in and develop?
I think contributions are one thing.
Yeah.
I think, and obviously contributions are there to try and do the right thing, but you look at contributions now at a standard level for a lot of product, you're averaging $30,000 a unit.
Yeah.
So most of that's $20,000 to the local authority, the local LGA.
Yeah.
And then you've got the housing productivity contribution as well that goes to the state. And that's $10,000 to $11,000 a unit as well. So there's $30,000 to $31,000 a unit automatically that has to go towards your feasibility.
Yeah.
That hurts.
Yeah.
So, automatically one thing, if you're delivering a certain type of product, there could be dispensations for that.
Yeah.
Dispensations for affordable housing. There's a lot of affordable housing now that's going to be delivered. And, it's much needed in the marketplace.
Yep.
And it's something that the industry or the marketplace has been lacking for quite some time. Looking at dispensations and tax credits associated with that. There are levers that can be pulled. But they are hard to pull those levers as well. But contributions and taxes are definitely something that they can look at to try and alleviate some of the pressure that we as an industry deal with every day.
And to make yourself more competitive, like how are you trying to innovate? And I mean, a lot of developers are struggling to find sites and deliver stock in that. I'm assuming you're talking that $15,000 to $20,000 a square meter market. Yeah. Ideally, even a bit less if you could. But
look, I'll be honest. Ideally, I'd love to be playing in that slightly cheaper market, but at the moment, the feasibility really hurts in terms of trying to make those markets work. So anything between 15 and 25 a meter is really where we're looking. And a lot of it's kind of working out to be between 18 and 20,000 a meter, depending on the area that you're in. But that's where we feel as though we can be competitive and we can make a difference.
And what are you doing in terms of trying to source sites, identify sites? What deal structures are you sort of trying to get? What's your lead time to actually bring a site to life?
Deal structure is ever evolving. So, the days of exchange contracts on a 6-week settlement, they're very hard to make work now.
Yeah.
A lot of it's call options, put in calls, PDA structures. So, it could be vendor puts up their land, they get stock or cash at the back end, or there's payments throughout.
Yeah.
There's a lot of creative ways now that we as a business are introducing to vendors to try and meet their pricing expectations, but being able to provide that financial compensation in various different ways. That helps us to make it feasible. And it also allows them to achieve the end goal or the end number that they have in mind as well. So contractually what we're introducing to try and get deals across the line, it's very, very creative.
Okay, nice. And let's just talk about your customer or your end user. So what work do you do before you pick a site or before you enter into contract on a site to understand who the end user is going to be and what product you're actually going to deliver?
We're probably looking at things a little bit differently at the moment. So, a lot of the markets that we are looking at currently are markets where there's been a high concentration of premium grade or luxury grade stock at a certain price point. And we're looking at the demographics of those markets to go, okay, there's obviously demand for downsizes in that market, but what about the rest of the market? Is there demand there for smaller 2-bedroom product, smaller 3-bedroom product, 1-bedroom product? How deep is the market pool or the demographic pool in those areas to be able to absorb something that's priced in a certain manner that is more attainable? So we're probably looking at things in a slightly different manner. Because like I said, I fear about what the luxury market and the premium market's going to do over the next 5 years. And we're looking to provide an alternative product to some of these markets for a different buyer pool.
Yeah. And so you'd hate to be a Lux developer in Mossman right now, is that what you're saying?
I don't want to go that far, but I'd be very strategic about investing in Mossman.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. It's an interesting window. You got all these HDA sites as well that all look like they're all going to come online by 2028, 2029. There's a big glut of. I mean, not much has been approved, like DA approved as of yet, but it seems like there's a big, just a big amount of supply that's going to drop at the exact same time, or very, very, very similar window.
I don't think it'll be as bad as what people think. I think you got to look historically in terms of approvals and completions.
Yeah.
That number isn't, it's a fair spread between those two numbers. And it'll be interesting to see now with the HDA and a lot of these projects that are going through the HDA, how many of them actually do get delivered. Now, obviously, the state government's doing the right thing. They're saying, if you get an approval, it has to be activated within, I think you've got a 2-year window from the consent before the consent lapses.
Yeah.
So that's going to force a lot of people to make moves and really activate those sites. So it'll be interesting to see over the next 5 years what that does look like. But I don't think it's going to be anywhere close to 100% strike rate.
No, of
approvals
course
and
not.
delivery. So
Of course not.
it'll be interesting to see what that looks like over the next 5 years.
Yeah, step one in that process is a bit of a joke. Yeah.
But the honest truth is, even if you deliver all that to, like I said before, the housing crisis is real.
Yeah.
You deliver all that stock. It's only a portion of what the state needs, what the country needs.
Yeah.
So
you think it'll all get absorbed relatively good?
Look, will it get absorbed day one? Obviously not.
No.
But, there is demand at every demographic level for stock that people can afford.
Yeah.
And again, that could be downsize a product at a higher premium price point, or it could be first home buyers where, sub $1 million is what they can afford.
Yeah.
That demand's not going to go away. That buyer pool is there. So as long as you provide good quality product in markets at the right price point, it will get absorbed.
Yeah. How is someone going to actually do it though? We see it in our project marketing side of our business. Like that sub $1.2 million price point for a unit, doesn't matter, for a good quality unit, the demand's like 5x, right? Versus something that's 1.5 plus.
Yep.
Can't get it there. How do you do it? What do you need to get from a landowner or to be able to actually, if you're selling at 12 or 13 or 14 a meter, you have to be buying the site at what?
Obviously,
at the moment,
obviously, look,
you can tell me it's my job.
It's pretty simple math.
Yeah.
If your cost base is at a certain level, and there's no adjustment to that, and your revenues are locked in, then there's only one other lever that can be pulled.
Yeah.
And that's a land consideration.
Yeah.
Now, again, there's different ways to skin the cat in that approach. Whether it's a straight up exchange contract, call options, more time for settlement, structured deals, PDAs, things like that.
Yeah.
There are ways to be able to manufacture a result that works for both the vendor and the developer.
Yeah.
But it is harder than ever to make those markets work.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about how you're going to grow this business and the team and the people around you. I mean, you've obviously had some great jobs and some great leaders and mentors along the way. And I found this part really challenging when I was building my business, is how to create pathways for other people, right? Because you're now sitting, you're the big dog now, right? So you've got to bring people up around you.
Absolutely.
So, what are some key principles that you're installing within the business to make sure that your team have an ability to grow and prosper?
I think a lot of the time that I'm spending at the moment, obviously, we're spending a lot of time on acquisitions and finding the right deal structures and so forth. But whilst we're in that startup phase, we're spending a lot of time at the moment on systems, procedures to try and make things relatively user-friendly for the team. So obviously you still need smart, hardworking people behind you. But if you have good systems and procedures in place that allow your staff to follow the right methodologies and the right checkpoints in terms of mitigating risk and checking your designs and so forth, that can save a lot of heartache in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm spending a lot of time on that at the moment in terms of investing time and money in setting that up day one before we have, accelerated pipeline that we need to deliver.
Yeah.
But obviously then, I want to spend a lot of my time on mentoring staff and, try and provide them with some of the knowledge that I've learned over 22 years. And, I don't have all the answers, but, been a lot of things that I've seen gone wrong, and I've learned very quickly in development how to be able to mitigate that risk.
Yeah.
I think, a lot of what we do as developers is mitigating risk and dealing with problems every single day.
Yeah.
So if you can kind of focus on those elements day one and try and eliminate the risk in the back end and understand the skills and the procedures that you need to do to try and streamline the process. I think that's key.
Now, if you had to give a tip to someone who's, at uni now and they're thinking about getting into our industry, what do you think are some key traits or some key characteristics they need to have to make it and be successful?
The one thing I was told 20 plus years ago, and it's always stuck with me, is hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you put the time and the energy into your craft, whatever it may be, it could be architecture, it could be development, whatever it may be. But if you put the time and effort into your craft, both at work, but also after hours, to really immerse yourself into it, you're going to reap the rewards in the long run. Now, obviously, for the younger generation, they want to see accelerated results, and that's hard to be able to see what that looks like in 15, 20 years' time.
Yeah.
But if you put the time and the focus and the energy into something and the hard work, it's going to pay dividends in the long run. That's probably the most simple piece of advice I can give to people. Don't try and skip steps. Don't try and accelerate the process, especially if you're going into property development, where it is such a complex profession, where you're dealing with a multitude of different stages and professions. Like, for example, when I started in the industry, I did a property economics degree.
Yeah.
I had no understanding of architecture, construction, structural engineering, hydraulic engineering, mechanical engineering. I had no idea what that was.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you want to become a property developer and you realize, okay, well, I need to understand these concepts at a basic level to be able to deliver a product.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time outside of work to be able to understand just the basic concepts of that.
Yeah.
So don't skip steps. Put the work in, you'll reap the rewards.
Mate, that's it. It's hard telling someone that when they're a little bit younger on the way in. But yeah, look, I'm with you, man. That day-to-day grind, you do see it, like you sort of don't know how it happens, but it seems to happen, right?
It does happen.
Yeah.
You'll reap you get out what you put in.
Yeah.
So if you're going to put the hours in and put the effort in, people will acknowledge that.
Yeah.
And you'll reap the rewards in the long run.
Do you ever have any imposter syndrome where you sort of sit in your chair and you're like, fuck, I'm actually doing what I'm doing? Like, how did I get here? Or you're pretty, you're satisfied, like, I've deserved to be where I am today?
Look, I don't think that way at all, to be honest with you. I've made the jump now to start a brand new business with Greenpoint, and we have very large aspirations in terms of trying to make a real dent to the housing crisis.
Yeah.
That's a massive challenge for me. So my mindset isn't, I'm in this position. My mindset is, how are we actually going to make this work? How are we going to deliver what we're saying?
Nice.
How are we going to deliver what we're proposing? So for me, this is just the next challenge and the next chapter of my journey.
Nice.
And I'm ready for the challenge.
Nice. And what is someone who's going to be buying into a One Living development into the future, what can they expect?
High quality product and an attainable price point. That's really the message that we're putting out there. And we're looking at a whole variety of different markets where we're not necessarily looking to deliver the norm, and whether that's through design or price point or whatever it may be, it's going to be a unique product that where quality is at the forefront of what we deliver, but making sure that we can deliver that in a smarter manner, where the price points are more attainable for people. That is really what we're looking to put out to the marketplace, and consumers that look to invest into our products. That's what we're looking to do.
Nice, man. I have absolutely zero doubt you're going to be successful.
Oh, thank you.
Mate, you're an absolute machine. Bro, I remember so many times when all other developers say, like, oh, who's a really good development manager? I go, there's one guy, it's Joe, but you're never going to be able to get him. I go, I always say, if he ever leaves, he's going to go and do his own thing because he's too fucking good and too capable. Man, I appreciate you taking the time for today, mate. It means a lot to me. We've done some business before in the past. I'm looking forward to doing a lot more in the future.
Absolutely.
And guys, everyone keep an eye out. One Living on the rise. 10 years, they're going to be the #1 developer in the country.
We'll see.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate
Cheers.
it. Thank you.
All good, man.